In its 6th year, the Blood Oath Premium Bourbon Series from Lux Row Distillers and Master Blender John Rempe is here. Find out a little bit more about the bourbon, the finish, and what I think about the new Blood Oath Pack 6 today on the Mash and Drum. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mash and Drum Whiskey Room. I am Jason C. Blood Oath Pack 6 is from Lux Row Distillers and their head distiller and master blender, John Rempe. John Rempe is the creator of Blood Oath and has been developing and blending spirits and beverages for more than 20 years. Rempe is a certified food scientist, received his bachelor's degree in biology from St. Louis University. He then spent some time developing carbonated soft drinks and fruit drinks and creating new beverages before moving on to Luxco. Rempe brought his creativity and discernible palate to Luxco more than 17 years ago and has since overseen the development and creation of a diverse portfolio of award-winning spirits and whiskeys, including Blood Oath and also Rebel Yell. Now, for the last 6 years, Blood Oath has showcased Rempe's love for blending and creativity. The Blood Oath line showcases high-end blends that experiment with barrel finishings and also unique mash bills. The last 6 years, we have seen blending wheated bourbons, we've seen port finishes, rum finishes, Cabernet Sauvignon finishes, and a blend that included a bourbon finish in a toasted barrel. All bourbons have really good age and can be products of distillate from any distillery John Rempe chooses to include. Now, this year's Blood Oath Pack 6 is a blend of 3 Kentucky Straight Bourbons, all made with traditional rye mash bills, a 14-year, an 8-year, and a 7-year that Rempe finished in Cognac casks. According to John Rempe through a press release, he said this particular pack is special in that Cognac barrels added some sweetness and a slightly fruity brandy flavor to the bourbon, creating an amazing taste profile. When selecting these bourbons, I wanted to see how these flavors mesh together, and I have to say the result was spectacular. 17,000 cases were made available at a retail price of $100. The final blend was bottled at the line's traditional 98.6 proof, and this is available now. So before we dive into the review, the main differentiator in this bottle is, besides the 14-year and 8-year-old bourbons that are in it, is a 7-year bourbon that was finished in Cognac casks. So what exactly is Cognac? Cognac is brandy made primarily from a blend of grapes that include the Ugni Blanc, Follet Blanche, and Colombard varietals. I probably screwed up the pronunciation of those, but I'm going with it. At least 90% of the brandy must be comprised of those grapes, while an additional 10% can be made of other kinds. Like champagne, Cognac must be made in the Cognac region of France. Now, once the brandy is made, it must be distilled twice in copper pot stills, then aged at least 2 years in oak barrels. Now, at this point, you might be saying this sounds a lot like whiskey, and you're not wrong. The process and laws are somewhat similar. The barrels must also be made from French oak sourced from either Limousin or Trancay. Now, when you see a cognac on the shelf of a store or a label of a whiskey using it as a finish, there are a couple things you can look for on the label to help you designate exactly what kind of cognac is in that bottle or using it as a finish. These have everything to do with the liquor's age. If you see a cognac bottle with the letters VS, this stands for very special. This is a blend where the youngest brandy has been in a cask for at least 2 years. If you see one that says VSOP, that actually stands for very superior old pale. Also known as reserve, means the youngest brandy has been stored in casks for at least 4 years. Now, if you see XO on the label, that means extra old, or it could say the word Napoleon. That means the youngest brandy in the batch has been in the cask for at least 10 years. Lastly is hors d'âge, or beyond age. Now, beyond age is the final quality designation and, by law, equal to XO, but can be used by cognac producers for premium products that go beyond the specified age designation. Flavor-wise, the different designations of cognac will vary, much like with whiskeys. It's possible to find fruit notes, a variety of spice characteristics, herbal notes, and oak. So let's see how the new Blood Oath is and how that cognac imparted that flavor. Now, as I normally do with a finished bourbon, which I think is important for review, is to let this open up and have a few pours to see what happens to the flavors from the finish. Pack 5, which was finished in rum casks last year, got a lot more maple syrup and sweet after some air got into the bottle and some time passed on. So let's dive into the nose and see what we get. All right, so I'll be honest, my first impressions when I had this over the weekend was that it was a bit disappointing. You can tell that there was some delicious sweet bourbon notes there, but I wanted more from the cognac finish. I did get kind of a grape note to it, but after a few pours of this and some air got into it and some time passed by over the weekend, the flavors of this bourbon really started to jump out of the glass. So on the nose, you immediately start getting more of the dark fruits. You get some almost blackberries coming out of the nose, definitely imparting that flavor, getting from the cognac casks. Roasted figs, raisins, and dates, like honey-covered dates. There's a nuttiness characteristic there too. It's almost like roasted almonds or peanuts. Just a ton of sweetness. There's some molasses in there, some sweet molasses. Butterscotch. Yeah, I mean, as more air gets into it, then, you know, beyond the fruit notes and the cognac finishes, now the 14-year-old bourbon in there, the ultra-aged bourbon notes are starting to come out too. You get a little bit of leather, tobacco, good oak spice too. There's a really nice balance with the oak. Just a really beautiful nose. You just gotta give it some time for it to come out of the glass a little bit. A couple pours definitely does help this bourbon. All right, let's go for a sip. Wow, so first sip is when you get all those bursts of those fruit flavors I was mentioning, right on the tip of the tongue. Now this isn't high proof, this is 98.6, so you're not really getting that tingliness there, but you are getting a lot in fruit flavor. You're getting blackberries, you're getting those dates, the figs. You're getting kind of that grape note from the brandy. There is a distinct grape note, almost like grape soda. Then as it starts actually working its way back, then you start getting all the bourbon notes, the butterscotch, the vanillas, the caramels, some baking spices start to make its way through. Just kind of an onslaught of flavors on the first sip. Let's go for the next one. Cheers. Yeah, so second sip now, that nutty profile that I was getting on the nose is starting to come through now. Now it's more almonds, more honey roasted peanuts. Still that fruit, that blackberry note or the raisins and dates are kind of overlaying it a little bit more here. They're not so much as the star of the show as they are just a good complement to the good bourbon that's in here, which is what I like a good finished bourbon to do. I don't want it to be overpowered with finishing. But I want it there enough to be able to tell it's there, you know what I mean? So let's go for another sip. Well, that third sip might have been my favorite. I feel like they're all coming together now. All the different flavors are starting to hit their stride here. All the different fruit notes that I was getting up front are still there. But with each sip now, the ultra-aged bourbon, that 14-year-old bourbon, the leather, the sweet tobacco notes, some of the oak spice, the tannins are really starting to come forward a little bit, especially on the finish. The finish on this is not very long. Remember, 98.6 proof. It's not giving me a super long finish or long burn here. I do wish it was a little bit longer. I will say that. If I had one gripe about this bourbon, I do wish there was more going on in the finish. But the finish does have more of those older bourbon aspects to it. You get the leather, some sweet tobacco. You get a little bit of the baking spices and maybe a hint of that fruitiness on the back end. Not a lot. I feel like you get more of the fruitiness up front, and then the other bourbons kind of take over the back end. Let's go for another sip. Yeah, this one's staying pretty consistent, guys. It's very sweet up front. The combination of the blackberries. I think I got a little bit of an apple note there too, like a cinnamon apple up front. It's very sweet. It's very desserty. This would be a really good dessert bourbon, I think. But also at the same time, it could be a really good cigar bourbon, I think. I think this would go really well with a cigar. It has those brandy notes. Brandy's kind of well-known cognac for having with a good cigar. You combine those notes with the really good cognac finish in here, the grape, the deep, rich, nutty notes that you're getting in here. Man, the ultra-aged bourbon, the leather, tobacco. I'm liking this the more it's opening up, the more it's sitting in the glass too. So let's go for one final sip. Yeah, this is really good. This is a great blend. Do I wish it was a little bit of a higher proof for me personally? Yeah, maybe, but you know, maybe at that high proof, you might miss some of the other flavors here when it comes to, because sometimes adding some water to the bourbon will actually bring out some more of those fruity notes. So maybe that was the point here. All right, so final sip. Here's the experience. So what I'm getting is up front, I'm getting, again, the fruity notes, the blackberries, the dates, the figs, maybe a little bit of raisin. I'm getting now that apple note I was getting earlier, like an apple cinnamon from the last sip. That was definitely on the front of the palate. As it works its way back, then it starts becoming roasted peanut, almond, a little bit more of the butterscotch, vanilla, more of the traditional bourbon notes. Definitely lingers on. As it gets to the back of the palate, then the aged bourbon notes start coming in. It's not a long finish, like I said, but you do get some of the sweet tobacco, a little bit of a leather, get some good oak spice on there, some good baking spices. A very, very well-rounded bourbon. All right, guys, let's go for the final breakdown on Blood Oath Pack 6. All right, guys, so first the price. The price on this, the MSRP is about $100. Availability, I would say, for these is fair. Not great, but not bad. There were 17,000 cases here that were produced, and I tend to see Blood Oath when searching stores and also shopping online. But as these have gotten more popular the last few years, the new releases have been selling fast. So what do I think the value of this is? I think the value for this is above average, being 98.6 proof, and having 14-year, 8-year, and 7-year bourbons included for only $100, I think is already worth it in today's market. Now, flavor-wise, what you get is a deliciously finished bourbon with cognac notes that just get richer over time. Combine the cost of cognac barrels and how expensive they are to get and to use. For $100, I think the price is actually a good value for what you're getting. So is this a recommend for me? I would say yes, but. Now let me explain what that means. I do recommend this bourbon with a couple things to keep in mind. One, you have to like finished bourbons. The flavors that the cognac has added starts off subtle but gets stronger as it opens up. The dark fruits, raisins, and grape notes combine with those traditional butterscotch, vanilla, caramel notes to give a really good and balanced flavor profile, which brings me to my second point. If you do buy this and feel like you're not getting a lot of those cognac notes at first, give it a little time. As this bourbon opens up, it gets fruitier, sweeter, more balanced as the fruit notes combine with the bourbon, oak, and baking spices, and also gets more balanced as you keep sipping it. I think John Rempe did a really great job with this one, and I would recommend it to anyone who loves something more fruity, higher aged, and definitely unique. All right, everyone, well, I really hope you enjoyed this review for the brand new Blood Oath Pack 6 from Lux Row Distillers. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that subscribe button below. Please hit that like button. If you haven't yet, follow me on Instagram and follow me on Twitter. Let me know what you think of this one. If you've had it, did you experience the same thing that I did with it opening up, getting fruitier over time? And as I always say, it is not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. So cheers, and I'll see you next time on The Mash and Drum. Take care.